Hello, I am Suzanne Hilser-Wiles, President of GG+A, and I am delighted to welcome you to the latest edition of our Thought Leadership Series. If you have questions, please submit them via the Q&A button at the top or bottom of your screen. We won't have time to answer them during the session, but we will answer them via our website in the days ahead. I am joined today by Wood Cantopher, President of the Wellesley College Alumnae Association. Laura began her career in publishing before becoming a leader in alumni relations and fundraising in the US and the UK. While in the UK, she became a consultant with GG+A, where we became friends, and then a leadership coach to individuals and teams focused on high performance. After retiring in 2019, she turned her attention more fully to volunteering, using her formidable skills in service to the institutions that she loves. Thank you so much for being here, Laura.
I am very excited to see you. The only thing better would be if we were in person.
I know. I wish we were. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in because I've got some meaty questions for you. The first is, you have held a number of roles at Wellesley College. Can you describe those briefly and why staying close to the college has been a priority to you as an alumna?
So I have to start with the second part of your question first, because it's the root of everything, which is that I was one of those people who loved Wellesley from the minute I got there. And I was very active as a student and just all along felt this very strong desire to give back. So that's been something that has had great meaning for me. The smart, incredible, inspiring women that I got to know as students, I thought, why would you not just carry that on? So there's a little bit of selfishness in my service to the college, because why wouldn't I want to spend more time connecting with these incredible women? So it's just always been something that's been inbred in me. And one of the things I would say is that the passion that I have for the institution makes it very easy to be a volunteer for it. I love Wellesley, and when I ask people to do things, I'm thinking about the institution and not about myself asking them something. So I laugh, the list of volunteer things. So, president of my class.
This is only 30 minutes, Laura.
Co-chair of the 10th reunion, fund rep, special gifts rep. So I did a lot of things for my class of 1984, but then was asked to look beyond just my class. So I participated in a regional support of club colleagues, club presidents. I served on the search committee to find our current executive director. That was amazing. And I was a director on the board many years ago. It was about 15 years ago. But I think I'm also a little unusual because 2 different times I actually worked in the office. So I was on the administration. I worked as the director of clubs, regional clubs, in 1989 for a year. And then in the early 2000s, after my board service, I was actually the interim executive director. So I covered a gap between directors and then a maternity cover. So I'm really able to understand what goes on in the halls of Green Hall, which is where they're located. So I think that gives me a really unique perspective as a volunteer, because when I say I understand what you're going through, I understand the challenges and the balancing and the integrating of different campus partner desires for the alumni, I really mean it.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting because you've got this experience, deep experience at Wellesley, and then you have experience with other institutions in this alumni and fundraising role as a consultant. So I think you are in an unusual position because you can see what are some things that are happening at other places that might be really helpful to Wellesley, even as you think about how to make sure that you're honoring the culture and the tradition and the things that make Wellesley so special.
Oh, and absolutely. And sometimes somebody will say at Wellesley, can you put your consultant hat on for a minute? And I'll say, okay, let me take my president of the Alumnae Association hat off and put my consultant hat on. Because you make a really good point, which is, and we know this, as consultants, it is not one size fits all. It's very important to remember the unique features of the institution that you're volunteering for. So my experience supporting Wellesley or the work that I would do at Wellesley would be completely different at a different institution. And that's one of the really important things. Yes, there are things that happen everywhere. We know what they are, or we're not surprised to see them, I guess I would say. But there are those unique features of the institutions that you have to take into account.
Absolutely. So in your current role as president of the Alumni Association, you work closely with the head of the Alumni Association, the wonderful Catherine McIntosh,
Yes.
the president of the college, and the chair of the college's board. What do you think are keys to successful partnership with people in those roles?
So that I've thought a lot about this, and I think there are some that are specific to their roles, and there are others that apply across the board. So specific to Catherine's role, to the executive director, I need to stay out of managing her staff. Like, that is not my job. And I think
There are people on this call who are printing up
they're like-
t-shirts that say
they're
that.
like this. They're like, stay, dear volunteer, stay out of my business. So we laugh about this because that's not just, I am a sounding board. Absolutely. You ask me to weigh in, I'm going to tell you what I really think, but it's not my job. That is not my job. And I think that many volunteers run into this real danger zone when they think they know everything. I always say to myself, the minute I think I know everything, I should just hit stop and just start over, because I don't know everything. But that don't get in the business of the staff. That's not where they need you. Go back up to 30,000 feet up and think about strategy. Our board, yes, I am responsible, and I think of myself as responsible for chairing our Alumni Association board. I take that really seriously. I think a lot of times, and Catherine taught me this, having a meeting is not always a solution. Like, let's have the committee meet. No, that's not always the best solution. But I should be thinking about whether the board is delivering to Catherine and her staff and the institution what is required. That's my job. And we work together on a lot of that stuff, but I am not in the nitty-gritty of running the office day to day. That's the big one with Catherine. And I think across all of them, I'm gonna tell the truth on myself, because I think it's important advice for women in particular. Just hearing you say you work closely with the president of the college, the chair of the board of trustees, how easy is it to get intimidated? And so when I was asked to be president, which I consider a huge privilege, I promised myself two things. One, I would not be intimidated by the people that I was going to engage with. And two, that I would be my authentic self. And so that, I think, for women in particular, because we're talking in the context of women leaders, life's hard enough. There are enough challenges you're going to face. Don't lay something else on yourself. Believe you can do it, get out there, really work hard, but don't let yourself be intimidated, because you bring a specific viewpoint, talent, perspective that is the reason you're in whatever role you are in as a volunteer.
Yeah.
So that's kind of overall. But I think with the president of the college, one of my big things is expectation setting. I think when Paula Johnson, who we're privileged to have as the president of Wellesley College, the first time we met together, I think it was really important for me to acknowledge that we have a strategic plan, and that a very large portion of the work I would do during my term as president was around how to mobilize and move alumni in support of the strategic plan. So expectation setting in terms of what it is we need to accomplish, that felt really important. Another thing,
I could just stop there. And I think one of the things that you've done well, and I've gotten to witness a couple of conversations with you and President Johnson, is not just expectation setting, but really making sure your expectations are aligned. And I think in your case, that is very, very true. So you're a trusted partner, and you can feel empowered that within this, I can help move forward.
Absolutely. And alignment was one of the other things, so I think there's expectation, then there's alignment. And with all of the campus partners, the president, chair of board of trustees in particular, I feel like part of my job is to say, you know what? There is an expectation that you have that we may have problems meeting, whether it's resource related or, timing, because you and I both know, and many of the people who are watching this webinar will understand, for all the will in the world, change management needs to be done at a pace that people can absorb and come with you as it's being made. And so speed, like some things we're doing too slowly. We need to put our foot on the gas pedal. Other things you say, hang on a second, I'm getting some resistance. In order for us to get where we want to go, we have to hit pause for a minute and just make sure that we're all understanding the different audiences who are impacted here. I think as a corollary to this, it's you can look at these kinds of jobs, like my volunteer job, and say, once a month I will meet with the president. Once a month I will meet with the chair of the board. I've actually taken a different approach. One of those is to say, as needed. I very much think all our time is precious, my own included, but I don't want to steal from time that the executive director should have meeting with the president of the college. So I look at that relationship as primary and mine as secondary, as needed in support of or for different issues. And I have Deborah De Hoyos, who's the chair of the board. I'm using her as a real sounding board for my own, obligations in this job, and to say, hey, I'm trying to work on this thing. Can I ask your advice about this, or can I highlight something for you and just get your perspective? Because she's got oversight of all the functions of the college that are way beyond mine. And so I think our relationship is, because she is a thoughtful and wise person, I've looked to her for counsel in terms of how to move things forward, how to think about, does this that we are working on fit into the larger picture, which I may not always have sight of. So they're slightly different relationships with all three people. There's one thing that crosses all of them, and that's trust. It's trust.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell this story on myself because I think it's important. The first time I met with Paula, I did say, I'm going to ask you to trust me. But to be honest, you probably shouldn't trust me. You don't know me well yet. So what I'm going to try to do is earn your trust. And the same, like, let's learn to trust each other. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell you the truth all the time. And I'm going to really always try to do the right thing for Wellesley College and its alumni. And I think that for me was the very basis of building a relationship, one where we could trust each other going forward. And that applies. I think that is not Wellesley specific. So for everybody who's a volunteer leader or deals with volunteer leaders, really think about that as the basis for everything.
Well, and you brought up a couple of key points related to that too, right? Being honest about your time and how you're going to spend it and where you are comfortable and what you know and what you want counsel on. That's a huge part of building trust. I mean, that mix of the humility to know you don't have all the answers, but the confidence to go forward and say, but I can find them and do good with them, I think is really exemplary. And I will say, not only in your role as a volunteer, but also as a colleague. So
thank you. Well, and I think, honestly, I learned that at GG+A. Like it was embedded in me in my work at GG+A, that it's okay. And I think this applies to all circumstances. It is perfectly valid to say, that's an excellent question. I don't know the answer to it, or I think I know the answer, but I want to ask someone who's done more in this area, or who might know, or I don't want to just give you my perspective. I want to gather a little bit more information before I answer the question. And listen, if it's about like computation, statistics, all that kind of stuff, I will not know the answer. I will never pretend to. But around other things, and there's one other part of this too. I think it's really easy to forget leadership and kind of being a good leader is not just in the moments that you want it to be. You're being a leader all the time, right? And I think that's kind of the magic of it, is that something you don't even think about as being a demonstration of your capability as a good leader. Someone picks up from an interaction you had or a way you handled a situation. Any of those things are really good demonstrations of leadership. And I think in particular for women, we're watching each other, we're learning from each other all the time. Whether you're an official mentor or not, you are providing mentorship to one another if you let yourself do it, which I would encourage all of you to do.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing, Laura. You and I both have had the incredible privilege of mentoring a lot of women as they're in career development. And one of the things that I recently had an opportunity to talk to two different people about was you may not be confident in seeing yourself as a leader, but you are seen as a leader. And
Yes.
think about, that's got to be the frame through which you think about how people are experiencing your actions. And I do think sometimes there's a disconnect between people, particularly women, and how they see themselves versus how they are perceived. And that can be a little daunting for
And it's
people.
really, it is, I feel like right now the word balance is overused, but there is this delicate balance between, I'm a leader, I'm walking around all the time
Mhm.
thinking of myself as a
Yeah.
leader, and actually recognizing that you are seen as a leader. And I think, the minute somebody says, you're the president of the Wellesley College Alumnae Association, I think it's obvious you're a leader. Like, I feel like there's no way I could be humble about that one. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to wear that proudly. I love telling people that I'm
Yep.
the president of the Alumni Association. I feel like it's an incredible thing. There are 35,000 plus alums. I know we will not make them all happy. That's another thing as a volunteer. You can't make everybody happy, but you have to really think about the trust that people have put in you to give you that privilege of being
Mhm.
a person working with this very important organization, because
That's
alums are the life and soul of an institution. I did not say this, but I wrote it down. Our chair of the board of trustees said it, and it's on a post-it right here. The best representation of a Wellesley education is its alumni. And I think about that all the time,
Mhm.
because the interactions I have, whether with individual alums who are happy or not happy, or
Mhm.
questioning or confirming, I'm thinking of each one of them individually as representations of the power and strength of a Wellesley education. And I think that helps just in terms of framing my behavior and my actions around
Yeah,
that.
that's great. That's great. So how do you define success for yourself in your
This
role
was
as a
so
volunteer leader?
this is so hard. I did a lot of, you're not surprised, I have notes. I thought a lot about this because um there's like the micro levels and the macro
Sure.
levels.
Sure.
Um, I would encourage anybody who has a president of an alumni association to provide them with a president-elect year. I
Mm.
was very lucky. So my term is 3 years, but for 1 year before I took over as president, I was on the board as president-elect. I wasn't responsible for anything yet, but I was able to get up to speed, to watch, to see. And so
Mhm.
that really helped in terms of thinking about what would success look like in my term?
Right.
What do we want to accomplish? But there's an overarching thing, which is I will be successful if I do all that I can do and have the Alumni Association carry out the mission of the organization, which is to connect alumni, to support the institutional priorities of Wellesley College, and connect alumni to the college and to one another in the pursuit of that support. And
Mhm.
I think about that. I opened it up. It's in our handbook. It's like the first page. Success is carrying out the mission. That's
Mhm.
on one level. Um, I think for me in particular, at this moment in time, success will be helping the organization to harness the power and strength of the alumni population around the implementation of our new strategic plan. And that feels like I would be remiss as the leader of the organization if I didn't acknowledge this is a moment in time. It's our first ever strategic plan. We're implementing it across the board at the college. So participating in that journey is very, very important. And indeed, components of the strategic plan that involve alums, we are responsible for taking a look at how we structure ourselves and make our organization able to support those endeavors. I will also feel incredibly successful if, when a Wellesley alum is interviewed or talks about her success, she mentions that she has Wellesley College to thank in some way, shape, or form. You know, I am what I am because of Wellesley College. I am an ambassador for my education, and I would love to have women everywhere who are alums be thinking about how they can complete the circle, complete the circle of keeping Wellesley strong by what you do in your part of the world and letting everybody know that Wellesley was part of that and the connection that you have to the institution. I think for me, success will be higher percentage of connection in whatever way, shape, or form that is, for our wider alumni population by the time I'm done being president. More mentors, more financial support for the institution, more employers coming to interview or have strong relationships with Wellesley, more connectedness around any kind of affinity you might have, whether that be professional or your shared identity group or your regional location, in any shape or form, provide the opportunities to be connected and have more people taking us up on those opportunities. That's success for me.
That's very exciting.
Said a lot.
Yeah, no, but I love what you said, Laura, because it connects to the mission. It connects to President Johnson's vision. But it's really thinking about what is the alumni role in that, and focusing on that. And you and I have one of the ways that we have bonded as friends is because I went to a girls' school, and that that community of smart women, who bond through life then and lift each other up and help celebrate each other has been an important part of my success as well. And so I think thinking about how do we continue to do that in a world that's really different from the world you and I went to school in, is exciting. And thinking that, of course, you have this role in the president's vision for what's next for Wellesley.
And it's interesting too, and I'm not sure whether we all, as volunteers, if we think about this enough, it is not about me as the individual. Like, it can't be my personal agenda. That's setting myself up for failure, quite frankly. It needs to be about what am I working on that is good for the institution and its alums, and I think that sometimes it can feel like a really fine line. I laugh that most Fridays I kind of look at my inbox and say, am I caught up on everything? Like, am I holding anybody up at Wellesley by not having read this email, done this thing, looked at this document? But I also, every once in a while, I would say like monthly or so, I do a bit of a personal sense check on, like, where are we? How am I doing on the big things that seemed important? Are they the same or different? Do I have to adjust them? How is it feeling and going? And I think that's important, that time to reflect, because it's very go, go, go. Let's not have it always be so transactional. Make sure you balance the short-term and long-term objectives, just like in real life, just like in professional work, your volunteer work, you should be thinking about the same things. There are these long range, like it's going to take the whole term for me to look at them. Be moving those pieces forward on the game board at the same time that you're dealing with all these transactional things. Because, an alum makes a call or writes an email, and there might be something I have to do. That's
Mhm.
different from the long range planning, the work with the strategic plan, but the balancing of that is just as important as it is in your professional or corporate jobs.
Absolutely. And I think the other hallmark of a great volunteer is somebody who understands that and takes it just as seriously.
Yeah.
And especially in a significant leadership position like the one you hold right now.
I
So
Yeah.
go
Can
ahead.
I say one other thing? I think I have to say this, or Catherine will be like, "Why didn't you say this?" Volunteers everywhere, do not do things that they don't want you to do because they are not helpful to the institution. Like, I think that's the same kind of thing as it can't be about me. You know,
Yeah,
things change. We've been devoted.
yeah.
I've been devoted in different decades of my post-student experience at
Mhm.
Wellesley. I've been devoted and loved certain volunteer activities that are quite frankly no longer useful to the institution. And I mourn that and I say, I wish it was like that, but it's replaced by something else. And I think
Yeah.
we all volunteers, leaders or otherwise, we can run into this, I love doing that, so I'm going to keep doing it, as opposed to thinking about that bigger, find the way to connect that is meaningful and valuable for the institution and for your fellow alums.
And I would argue, going back to your comment about trust, that in building trust with both President Johnson and Catherine is your willingness to listen to what does Wellesley need now,
Yeah.
and actually help, marshal this formidable army of Wellesley alumni
Yeah.
in those directions, because it does change. Institutions evolve. But if you really want to serve the college, we need to be mindful of what the leadership believes would be most impactful.
Yeah. And I'm not going to minimize. It's hard.
Oh,
It's hard work. And it's very hard to change programs that people love.
yeah.
And I think a mistake we can make is to not acknowledge that, to
Yeah,
say, you
yeah.
know, I hate it when people say this. The only constant is change. And I'm like, ugh. But it's kind of true. So
Mhm.
I think we just have to look at it in a different way. A very good friend of mine says, change is hard, change is overrated. It doesn't make it not important. Change is important, but change for good, valid reason that everybody understands is good change. And I do think that's the responsibility of leaders.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So, my final question is Women's History Month. What
yeah.
ad- what advice do you find yourself giving most frequently to young women you mentor?
So some of this I've already said before, and I wrote these down because I don't want to forget any of them. Believe in yourself. Like, really stop the doubting. There's no place for that. So really believe in yourself. That I have this rock right here that sits on my
Mhm.
desk, and it says believe. And it works in a lot of different ways in my life. But educate yourself about things and then believe that you can do it. That feels really important. Get involved in something that you're passionate about, because it makes the work a lot easier. um, I think there's a lot of, I need it for my resume or my CV, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, it's agony if you don't like it. It's agony. Don't set yourself up for that. Being a volunteer is hard enough. And let it be with something that you love. I'm very, very fortunate that the volunteer work I do is with organizations and institutions that I care deeply about, and that makes all the difference. Um, Tell the truth to yourself and to others. I think that's really important. Are you in over your head? Tell somebody, tell yourself, recognize it. Do you feel like you did a great job? Tell yourself that too, and tell other people. But telling the truth, I think, also relates to creating trust with the people you work with. Listen. This is huge, right? Listen, or you're going to find yourself answering the question that wasn't asked, or doing the work that wasn't needed. But the listening to understand, the context of the volunteer work that you're doing. Um, I've talked about this, I'll say it again. You don't remember that you don't have all the answers. And I think there's no shame in that. We talked about it,
Mhm.
but I think that's really important. I think women, and I'm a product of the 80s. So remember the 80s Superwoman. We were
Mhm.
supposed to be able to do everything, do it all, every single thing. I think with minimal help from anybody. And that's just ridiculous. Those times are over. We don't have to do that anymore. We can help each other. We can really, it's okay to not know everything. And indeed, sometimes it's your job not to know, because there are people who are really good at those functional areas whose job it is to know. And you can avail yourself of their expertise. This is a funny one. Now, you were asking me for advice, so it's okay that I'm giving it, but
Yeah.
don't give advice you're not asked for, right?
Those are all
Not
funny
a good
listening.
thing. That advice nobody wanted is the very worst kind. So don't be the person who gives it. I feel like it's all about the golden rule. Treat people the way you'd want to be treated. That one's really big for me. And I think it really works in particular with volunteers. Like, don't abuse the staff. They're working really hard. So I think I try really hard to treat people the way I want to be treated. Um, and it's okay sometimes to be reminded that you need to work on that a little bit more. But I
Yeah.
think those are my kind of those are the big ones.
Those are
And
good ones.
I think they apply to life, not just
They
life.
do to life. Take it into your volunteer role, but those are good, good,
Right.
good tips for life. I
Yeah.
am sure that everyone on this call is very jealous of Wellesley College for they have you as a leader, or me because I get to be your friend. Yeah.
Yes, that's
So
right.
um, so Laura, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. So thank you so much to Laura, to all of you for listening, to the GG+A team who puts together our webinars. We so appreciate you being with us today. Again, send us questions via Q&A or our website. We'll be happy to post answers. And Laura and I invite you to connect with us via LinkedIn or connect with GG+A to see similar programming. Thank you so much for being with us today. And thanks again, Laura. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
I
Bye-bye.
enjoyed it very much. Thanks, Suzanne.